is running black pipe so that we can run air lines throughout the shop. Is that correct? That is correct. So we got the black pipe, and apparently you have to take this fancy tool and you have to thread the end and then put a fitting on it to connect it or something, I don't know. And they're gonna run along the bottom of the trusses, which we were hoping to be able to install them while we had the lift, but it has to go back tomorrow morning, and you know, everything just takes longer than you think it will. And so we might just do a test threading really quick to see how it goes, and then
it's not that big a deal when you have a pipe vise.
Do what?
It's not that big a deal when you have a pipe vise.
Yeah. So Sam has a pipe vise. It's just up in the other shop.
Connected to a bench.
Mounted to a bench. So by the time he cleared the bench, picked up the bench, brought it all the way down here, it would be longer than probably what this process is going to take him. So
that'll be something to do that tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
But then we're kind of committed to working out of here.
Yeah.
Working better than I would have guessed.
Yeah. It's the first one. It's just trying to suck you in.
Yeah.
Make you think it's going to be easy, and then everyone after this is going to be a total pain. So our plan for running air in the shop, these lines will run along the ceiling and back to where the compressor is going to be, and then we'll have hose reels that come from these lines down so that we can have retractable hoses that will just roll up and be on the ceiling instead of having to drag hoses all the way across the floor in the shop, which is how we did it at our shop in Lahontan and how we have it up at the barn up at the top. So we figured since we're making this one from scratch, we'll make it the way we actually want it to be. I don't care what he says, this does not look like a fun process.
Oh, it's way more fun when it's up here. Using real oil would be nice probably as well.
Oh, you don't think that PB blaster is good enough?
It's oily.
It's oily. It's either making a pile of shavings or a puddle of oil at the bottom. On the ground underneath it.
Shavings it looks.
How do you know when you're done?
Pipe gets to the end of the
Oh
bag.
my gosh. I won't tell you how much further you still have.
Just a couple threads. Man. This is miserable.
Yeah, it looks it. Do you want me to stand on the one on the ground?
If you want.
Okay, we re-rigged. It seems to sort of be working. Maybe. Maybe not. This is a process. We'll come back when it's done. So it took approximately 6 minutes to thread the end of one of these pipes, and it just makes this cool little shavings pile underneath it. So it's cutting a groove or threads into the pipe, I guess.
Yep.
And that is awesome! So it went from that to that. How cool! What a pain!
So, not only is today awesome because we got power and lights in the shop, but it means I can test out the compressor that I've been wanting to test out since the day we got it home, because I'll have a 480 outlet that I can play with to see if it runs, if it makes air, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to drop the bucket off, throw some forks on, luckily the tail on the tractor wags back and forth, so I get a little bit of cylinder there. But that's why I'm being so careful. It's because there's 9 feet of blade to watch too. Took some time lapse yesterday of getting this in here and goofed around a little bit with the plug, getting it on there. It was all I could do to keep myself from plugging it in and flipping the breaker just to see what I'd get. But luckily I did not, as the nearly unreadable plate has a high and a low voltage setting for 220 or 440 volt, and while none of this is labeled, I'm going based off of how it looks, because that's how you should always do things. Just make assumptions, right? I'm pretty sure if my just vague assumptions of location equates to the numbers, that it's currently set for low voltage, because the top wires that are lined, that are wire netted together, are connected to the line voltage. Actually, that's a happy accident. For the high voltage, the ones that would have 2 wires coming out of the motor do not have the lines connected to them, and these do have. So if it's 2 lines out of the motor, the little cloth lines that you can't see because they're dark wires, are connected to the line wires that go to the plug over there. And on this little guy, 2 motor wires connected to the line. So another decent way to tell that I'm set on low voltage currently, so I don't know if it would have just spun at twice the speed, haha, or something bad would happen. Oh, and one last Sam whining comment. This is why the other quote-unquote shop was nearly unusable. Equally, why I didn't think of cleaning that off till I get it in here, I don't know. But that's how I roll, evidently. If it weren't so cheap, I'd feel stupid buying it. But that says 19th of August, 75 is when that awesome big giant gauge was made. And this motor, I don't know that I ever saw a date on it, but yeah, it's equally old. The cool thing is the numbers on this pump, it looks to be a Speed Air pump that they probably replaced, which I guess is fairly apparent that they did at some point, because you can tell old mounting flange, and this does not match that. So yeah, so hopefully that has some less hours on it. And I've heard people claim that old motors will run for stinking ever, so this will be the test of that, I guess. Guy that had it claimed it worked like a champ, made tons of air. I think I might have mentioned already the stats on the pump part itself, the compressor pump, where that it was 35 CFM at 175 PSI, so should be more air than I will ever use, ever. So I'm gonna keep getting it ready to try to plug it in the wall and test and see what it does before I figure out what motor starter I need, which is another thing. I was gonna see what voltage my pressure switch is rated at, because I'm afraid I remember it being 120. So I would need control voltage of 120 for a 480 volt contactor. I could run 120 over here when I get it, but more realistically is probably just getting a tiny little, I think I was looking there, $50 for a tiny little step down just to do control voltage for that, and put it all in a little obnoxious box somewhere. It looks like, I'm guessing they must have had it mounted to a wall, the control box for it, which I guess might be why the guy claims he doesn't know or remember what was in it. I've only ever seen, like, you keep your compressor pieces mounted on the compressor, but like I said, with the length of both of these, that looks to be like they were mounted on a wall. I don't know, maybe not. Anywho, back to checking it out and making sure, as best as I can tell, nothing bad's gonna happen if I spin it all up and see what I get. The one thing I haven't decided yet is how high to go pressure wise. I guess I could tap around with a hammer and make sure there's nothing just ridiculously thin on the bottom. That's always a worry with these old tanks, is if they've been drained regularly and stuff, because that much air at 150, 175 psi. I just happen to have seen a couple YouTubes of them shooting across a shop and blowing bits and pieces everywhere, so I guess they make pretty big booms and have some force behind them, so not something you want to test with just air. I'm gonna go flip the breaker for probably just a short second at first, and if that doesn't make any big giant scaries, we'll try a few more seconds. Air pressure fast. Yeah, I've never seen I think it's 60 or 80 gallon tank. I'm not sure which, can't remember. There's a name or a plate over here, but I don't think either one of us will be able to read it. Oh, maybe we will. It's big letters, old people letters. Yep, still don't know. Built in 19 something. Yeah, I've not seen anything build pressure that fast. My other old shop compressor isn't even close to that. That is very awesome and exciting. The other interesting thing is I'm pretty sure that sucked down a little ways. I wish I knew more about compressors, because somebody was saying something about whether it has, like the old ones I guess had pumps versus just splash lubrication. I don't know if this is that. I know that was only a few seconds, but with the amount of air it made, I was wondering how much heat we got, because again, back to previous experience with old crusty compressors, so low side big piston and high side, I guess I should also point out, it's a 4-cylinder, so a low and a high, meaning big piston, small piston on both sides, and the high sides usually make some pretty decent amount of heat from squishing all that air, and it's just warm to the touch. Not bad. I wish I would have heard the unloader hiss, or unload, go figure, what the easiest way of checking that is without causing me a whole new leak, because that should be one-way valve to the best of my knowledge, which is very, very little, like with most things, it seems. And I should check all the safeties. The tiniest bit of me wants to go flip the breaker once more, just to see if it would actually start up or not. That's probably not the brightest thing to do to breakers. They're not made to be switches, especially with what those cost. I'm honestly not sure what to do from here. It's really, really tempting to let it pump up to where it's supposed to kick out. Oh, that's another silly, obnoxious thing. Again, really, really old. Somebody else, who knows how many other people monkeying with it. Oh, I should check those. Not even slightly warm, which again, for 60 seconds, they shouldn't be. So, oh, let's see if the gauge actually works, and there's really air in there. Yep. We should probably see if the drain works and see if there's any water in there. I would prefer not to shoot the water at myself, but that is about the only option I have, I guess. Probably should have seen if that worked before we did this. Yep, oops. I don't want to break it off quite yet. Oh, now I decide whether to let it pump up and if anything would fly 50 feet and how mad I'd be if it did something to the Camaro that is a 20-year project at this point. Yeah, I guess we'll see what I decide here shortly. Don't know for a fact that that's an unloader, but that's the best I can find from reading and looking at things on the internet, because if it's on the internet it has to be true, right? My understanding is that that little guy should unload the air pressure out of this. What would Randy say? He would probably want to know how it's supposed to work. The low pressure big pistons blow air. I guess I could show you outside. Blow air into these intercooler little finned pipes that, if you follow around, goes to the inlet side of the small piston, the high pressure side. So the low pressure fills the high pressure, and then the high pressure output goes to the tank. So this high pressure output goes to the tank. It just has to cross behind the head. That's this tube here. To there, to that valve that I showed you on the other side that's I'm nearly positive almost has to be a check valve. Basically there has to be a check valve between the pump and the tank, and this is making me think check valve did not work. So even if that tried to let pressure off, it wouldn't work very well. So it's possible that it takes a long time to bleed off 50 pounds of air from those 3/4 inch lines, but it seems a bit excessive. So we have a couple questions or problems. And then the other funny, maybe not so much so, but something is, I don't know what in the world these do. So that's, I'm assuming off the intake to the high pressure, and that's intake of the low pressure. Same over here. Low pressure, high pressure, just opposite sides. And the fact that it has nothing connected to it. I probably should have stuck my finger. Oh, I completely forgot to see which way it was turning when I turned it on. Dang it. So, we may drain the air out. So, back to the whole not using the breaker as a light switch. At least let's not do it while it's loaded. So, I guess back to how it's supposed to work. So pumps high pressure to low pressure, you let the air out with an unloader so that the compressor's not pushing immediately against all that air. it has a second to get spinning before it's got pressure built up to pushing it. Just trying to get this spinning with where it should be 150 psi in the tank is a lot harder than no psi in the lines. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that off and see which way it's spinning because I was just so excited that it worked. Like, forgot what I was doing. Oh, we can try safety pop-offs. And how you get test when they don't have little rings. Interesting. Oh, that's kind of neat. That might be able to accidentally test how bad the rings leak. Because that's letting off pressure from the low piston that still technically the high piston is bleeding from this guy. That's kind of cool. Would that be rings that matter or reed valves? Either way, it's not leaking. That's cool. And with that gauge going down as much as it is, clearly that one-way valve is no bueno. It looks wet. Okay, I was wondering if 90 would even spin around in there, but it looks like they clearanced to where it would. So we'll have to get hose unscrewed, and all this is old and rusty, so it might be where we start accidentally destroying things to try to make things better. Let it drain and kick it back on to see which way it spins, and that might be all the fun we can have with it for today while we get, because it's, I don't want to say useless, but really not awesome having that check valve not work. And then figure out what to do with the unloader. Got the one-way check valve out. Luckily it really wasn't, doggone it, it really wasn't that bad. Can't imagine why it wasn't working. So honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it would work if I clean it up a little bit, but I'm gonna go see how pricey they are. And boy, me and filming. Anyway, see how pricey they are and probably not worry about it and just buy a new one, cause it's funny, I don't see how it works. I see spring 'em a thing at that end, but all I see is solid stuff there. Oh, cause dum-dum, that probably slides down into the spring 'em a thing. For some reason I was focused on it, maybe air came out that. Let's get a pokey device and see if we can outsmart it. It's still bird dirty. I guess it doesn't matter. It's oh yeah. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see. Yep, there you go. And actually it looks like, if you look real close, it barely even closes. So, but that could, like I said, could still be crud, but we'll probably just order one. Because if the rest of the thing works out as quick and well as it appeared the pump does, that will be freaking awesome. And I'm curious how that keeps dripping water out of it. I ran a wire up it and it's not plugged, so I guess maybe it could just be that it's a small little pool in there. If I had a way to lift that, it'd drain quicker and not at a steady pace. And then I think I read on, like I said, I couldn't find the parts piece of this because it's so old, and well, that's my guess anyway. Anyway, I think that holds 5 quarts, and I think that's a 5-quart drain pan, so we should be fine. But I'm gonna run eat lunch and hope I don't run oil all over the floor. What else? We'll get a valve, and this has to be at least an 80-gallon tank. The other tank that I have, that I took a quick little video of, the compressor, just for comparison. I'll see if Brandy can maybe stitch them together. The other one's 60-gallon, like it says on it, 60, and it's 4 foot long. This is, well, more than 4. I think it was 5, and roughly the same diameter. So, and I'm wondering if I'm smart, if I should, if I'm gonna water test it, I should probably pull motor and pump off, which super sucks, just from the sheer amount of work on old, rusty, crappy parts, and fill it full of water and find some way of compressing up to a couple 100 pounds. I think I watched a while back a video of somebody using a grease gun to do it, but we'll see. And then somebody else was just using their pressure washer, but I don't want to fire up a pressure washer in the middle of winter just for this. I don't really want to play with water in the winter just for this, but so my conundrum is, if I pull all that apart, is it stupid not to, and it passes pressure test, of course, is it stupid not to wire wheel it down, clean it up, and try to make it look pretty? Because theoretically, this big old thing should, like I said, put more air out than I know what to do with, and last forever. Fingers crossed. So, yet another decision to be made, because I can't really use it now anyway. I gotta order a magnetic starter that I was talking about with 2 pieces of wire. That's what will flip it on and off. Oh, and I mentioned before that I didn't know how many volt that was, but it claims it'll switch 480, so I don't need a little step down for control purposes. Oh, and I don't know if I ever told you, it is turning the right way. And yay for Sam OCD, wiring colors and everything the same way. Both plugs turn the compressor the same way. I guess if you're not familiar, 480 volts, there's 3 legs. You can swap any 2 and make the direction switch on a compressor, which means if either of those were wired in a number of different combinations, it wouldn't spin the same way twice, or the same way on both those necessarily, but it does. So one's, nobody cares, one's 15 amp, one's 20 amp. The 20 amp's going to be for this guy, and maybe I could bring the lathe down to entertain myself some more when I get this all torn apart and to where I can't play with it anymore. So I think that's where we're at. Okay, I think lunch has helped me decide that pump alone was worth more than, probably 5 times more than what I paid for the whole thing. And the motor seems just fine. I'll probably pull it all apart, pressure test the tank, make sure it's not going to blow up, that I can tell, which that'll be entertaining, seeing if I can actually get it full enough of water and not leak enough to fill from something small that I don't mind getting full of water in the winter, as it'll likely freeze. Anywho, so I think I'm just gonna commit to it, take it apart, and if I'm taking it apart, like I said before, might as well clean it up and make it look fairly nice. And I don't mean just taking the bird crap off, but so that's what we'll do. I'm gonna try to make me leave the motor till last to plug it in without the pump, just to make sure it sounds fine as it is on its own. That's the word. And I think that's it. So we'll start doing that and see how long that takes us to get old rusty, what is it, 50, almost 60 years old stuff together, apart, not together. I wanted to spin that before pulling stuff off of there. I think 2 bolts will hold it. It didn't seem to have a whole lot of giant, like, motors make instant torque, so when they first kick on and get up to speed, they really want to get to whatever full voltage speed is. So sometimes they'll jump and do all kinds of awesome things. I think that should just sit there. We'll find out. So we're gonna go flip the breaker, use it as a light switch one more time, and make sure the motor sounds generally okay. Sounds like a motor. Nice good screw coming out of that guy. That's not awesome. What's gonna happen though? Roll it until it gets more obvious noises. And probably I'll get a grease gun that I can actually feel some back pressure on, so I know what I'm doing, and see if more grease might make it slightly happier. But otherwise, oh yeah, I should probably make sure the shaft seems generally tight, because you know how heavy that is. I could check the shaft in play with my hands, but yeah, we'll play around with it. And I think the only option I know of is pulling the tractor in. Really, I probably should have just hauled this up to the other bird poop shop and done all this there. I have no idea what I was thinking. Well, I needed that plug is all I was thinking. So should have pulled it up there to take it apart, but we didn't, so we're gonna do it the stupid way.